Good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow.
Welcome,
Happy
everyone.
Tuesday.
Paz, you look way different this morning.
Yeah. Wow.
I
It's
totally, yes, more mature,
more mature.
showered, those things.
Yes,
Distracted
the
by
basics.
a lot of pass.
I'm obviously not Adam. John
Well,
Baldino.
No.
So glad you're here.
welcome to the show. John is going to be subbing in for us this week. And
Substitute
we're so
teacher.
excited to have him. And yeah, you're bringing some spice, aren't you?
I'm not going to bring the spice. I'm going to bring I'll bring the flavor in a more broad way. How's that? That's very HR.
Aromatic flavors.
Yeah, why do you, I mean, for people who, I don't know who wouldn't know you, but for anyone that doesn't, like, why don't you give us a quick
are you?
little,
What do you bring
who
to
are
the
you?
show?
I mean, what do I do? So I am the founder and president of Humereso, this little HR consulting firm I've had for a little bit, been around for a lot of years.
Amazing.
That's all. I just hang out in HR. No big
We'll
deal.
hear more about Humereso, though, because we got a sweet commercial. It's
with
sweet.
like top dollar spokesperson.
Yeah, we're literally talking to like a celebrity.
Thank you.
Let us know what you're feeling today in the chat. What you're drinking. What's in your cup? Guys? We gotta guess what's in my cup today. That's always a fun game. Oh, what's in John's cup? We all know what Joel's drinking. It's coconut water, but is it really?
I don't know about that.
Not really sure.
I'm straight up coffee. Come on.
No, I know.
I'm gonna go.
I've been up.
It's 8 a.m. where I am in Denver. So, are we taking guesses? Danielle's got kombucha. Is that what it is? It might be.
No, I'm on the coffee game today.
Oh.
I get my coffee from Stu Leonard's. If any of you guys know what that is, the real ones know. Stu Leonard's is the coolest grocery store on the East Coast. It's a maze. It's literally you walk in and there's like singing, like animals and things just popping out.
Animals.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Animals.
Yeah, and singing avocados, singing bananas.
I have no idea about this. I have to look this up after we're done.
You have to look it up. So anyway,
I'm just heading to Aldi.
No,
you know what I'm
Aldi's
saying?
not exciting.
Hey, don't.
You know what I'm saying?
Know what I'm saying? Times is tough. All right, get in the chat though. Let us know who's out there. Like, I don't know. We got LinkedIn user. We got Dan. Dan is going hard in the comments, so he will be on the show later. But let us know who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? Get in the chat. All right, there we go. Steven's in the chat. So it's like Rainforest Cafe, but in grocery form.
That is helpful, Steven. Thank you.
They make the best coffee. And I'm having the Califia Farms creamer that is brown sugar creamer.
Tell me Gen Z without telling me.
The problem though is that, and I would like a price per cup. I mean, that's the thing between the creamer and the coffee. That's like a $12 cup of coffee. That's tough.
Because creamer, you use like a tiny bit of it.
But creamer is so expensive, though, man.
$6.
Yeah.
Well, guys, why don't we welcome everybody to the HR Morning Show, where we discuss things like singing animals in coffee shops, as well as all the news that you need to know from HR space, HR world, and we are a part of the purple Acorn. So you can head over to purpleacornnetwork.com and you can also see all of our other shows, which we'll touch upon. But you got to follow us on LinkedIn. I don't know how many followers we have, but it's like 1% of my followers. So let's get that follower count up, and let's go subscribe on YouTube. Okay. We're on YouTube, and we're actually a podcast, believe it or not, and we are live every single Tuesday. So get in the chat, say hi, and we're excited. We just had Unleash last week, so everybody that matters, everybody like in the world that matters was there. How did you guys find it?
Welcome to the inclusive morning show for HR and TA. No, I'm there, and we missed.
Fine. I was at ERE. It was even better.
You were. Yeah.
The vibes were high. The password to the Wi-Fi was purple squirrel, and I thought someone was playing a prank on me. So it's fine.
That's actually pretty funny.
It was hilarious. So, oh wow, we're getting a lot of comments in the chat. We love that.
Talia.
Welcome. And yeah, please keep engaging with us. We love when people talk to us because John doesn't have any real friends in real life. So
Don't. Everybody for me
Oh,
is virtual.
he gets
So
all of his
even my family, everybody's virtual. Nobody is around.
yeah.
virtual family. Hey, no joke aside, I watched this like 60 Minutes. I think it's Australia, and they were talking about people that were falling in love with AI agents.
Oh,
Oh yeah, that's a real thing.
Yeah,
let
yeah,
me
yeah,
tell you, if
And
you've never
therapy.
the movie, is it Her?
yeah, yeah,
With
yeah. That's what exactly what it's like.
fantastic. It's a great movie. It's frightening, but it is a
Of
fantastic
the
movie.
times.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yes, yes.
Well, it's a warning though. How I'm gonna tie this into recruiting. It's a warning because a lot of recruiters. One of the big things that I've heard around like AI agents is like, oh, people don't want to talk to AI bots. Well, I hate to break it to you, there's people who are developing serious relationships with AI
Full on
bots, so they
relationship.
might be okay with getting a job through an AI bot. Just throwing it out there to you guys. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I
anyway,
mean, that's the extremes, right? That's how we operate. I hate it, and now I'm going to marry it.
Well,
That's the extreme. It's
but also
ridiculous.
people are using, they put out these like top 10 use cases of AI.
yeah,
People are, I think number 2 is like career coach or some sort of
yeah,
coach,
therapist.
therapy.
Yeah,
So people are really leaning on AI when it comes to careers, and I don't see a reason why not to. I think
no,
I scheduled a post at some point this week about it. Because it
It's
is
true.
a viable option. What career, like what person who is not working, right? Like maybe you're laid off. How do you afford a career coach realistically? Like you're
Yeah,
pulling from your savings, you're using your severance. Like it's just the
yeah,
model never made sense to me.
well, and I mean, last week in Unleash, everything was AI, right? To your point. And so I think it's about what's the most viable way that AI should or could be used, as opposed to saying we have AI.
yeah,
And I think there was a lot of conversation about that last week. Like, all right, agentic and this and that, terrific. What does it mean?
Yeah.
How does it matter?
I,
That was
I
great.
would, John. Do you find that with a lot of these conversations, or like a lot of the conferences you're going to, like, do you find that it's like you'll have one conversation about AI, and then the next person almost feels like they have to like do one better than the next person, and it's like the
Yes.
next step up, and it's like
Yeah.
because someone told me one of the keynotes was like AI is going to take over the world, and I was like, this is how we started. It was like AI can do
Yeah.
your menial tasks, and then it got more and more and more, and then just the last guy's like, yeah, it's just AI's taking over the world.
Yeah. I mean, look, we love fear. That sells.
It's my favorite.
It's totally sells, right? So if you're like AI's taking over the world, people will click that just to be pissed about it even. But they're
Yeah.
going to still click and read. So fear sells.
When you obviously you go to a lot of conferences and you hear a lot about the AI conversation. Anything strike you about the conversations that were going on? At least anything that you like have been thinking about nonstop?
I don't know about nonstop, but I would say that I enjoy the conversations. I do think about other things other than AI. Uh, I like the conversations regarding helping people use AI that don't think that they can use AI. So
Mm,
I had two conversations last week with people who work for organizations whose boss says we're not using AI in our company. We will
yeah,
not use AI.
yeah.
And I asked if they use Microsoft Office, and they were both like, "Yeah." I'm like, you know, there's AI in that.
Of
Like, it's
course. You
finishing your
watching
sentence.
Netflix? Are you watching Netflix because you're technically using AI? And
and
come on.
and the conversations that they were able to go back to their CEO with to say, we actually already are. You've let it in, so now it's a matter of
Yeah.
how, right? How do we use it? I think those are smart conversations.
I talked to someone on my podcast yesterday, talent leader running talent at a tech company, and they said that they weren't using any AI. Like, and they're a little bit of a slow mover, and they kind of know the different use cases for it, but they're not on it. And it is a little bit unfortunate, I think, if you're in that kind of environment where you're not able to use it, and then you're reading
Mm.
headlines like adopt or
Yeah,
become obliterated in your career. It's like, well, it's not your fault if you
In
can't use it, like it's not
in
your
my
fault.
opinion, that
yeah,
is just it's a negative, it's a bad sign. It's just people not being open to new technology and looking for new ways and better ways to do things in my opinion, is not professional. Like the definition of professionalism within it means that you're always looking to learn and improve and look for better ways to do your job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think that as long as we keep being relational about AI's usage, like we need that. It's not instead of us. It's alongside of
Yeah.
us, right? Like that's the way to look at it.
We have to continue having conversations, addressing elephants in the room. That's really, in my opinion, the way that you progress.
Is that the way you drink coffee as well?
Yes.
Elephants in the room.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying. Well, that cafe you go to apparently has elephants everywhere and other
AI. Those animals are AI. Those animals must be AI.
AI zoo. That is a great use case. An AI zoo.
I like it. Well,
we got Chris in this chat too. Robert, Talia, Rona, Chris again. Rona and Talia. Great to see you guys. Robert, it's okay to see you. Just kidding. Really like you. Sorry, Danielle. You about to move us on. Why don't you take that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that concludes our Unleash recap.
Did we recap it at all? Good job.
Yeah, that was AI, and there was some good conversations.
There was AI.
I will say, I think my favorite part of all these live events is it. You can genuinely tell people want real connection.
Yes.
And it's very interesting from just like a sales point of view. Not that I'm necessarily doing a lot of sales, but watching a lot of the sales activity on, at conferences, it's really interesting to me. Different people's approaches to how they come into these events, but the one thing is true, like there are so many different connections you can make, and it's so much better than, it's so much better than having to kind of go through all of these DMs and emails to try and connect with people. Like I love the serendipitous conversations,
Yeah, but I will say one of the things that I'm still very disappointed in is the lack of innovation in content creation at these conferences. It's so stale, and it's like if you do something cool, make sure people know about it, and make sure that you're continuing that 30 minutes or hour, 20 2-hour long event or conversation, and you're repurposing the shit out of it. Because if you're not, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to reach an audience that you don't even realize you could be reaching.
I should just be a LinkedIn quote. Just
repurpose the shit out of it.
Danielle Farage.
It's a t-shirt.
It is true though. Like I do think there is a massive opportunity. One of the areas I think a lot of people should pay attention to is like what they're doing at some of these SaaS events. Because I think they're always a little bit ahead, right? And I know a lot of the content creators in that space that are they're shaking things up and they're doing like just experiential type things. But you can get a ton of content out of it. So I agree with you. I think there's some there's some room there, but it's also like I did see a lot more. I am seeing a lot more content being shot. Especially over the last couple of conferences I've been to. Like there was a group that was doing like a kind of like a live news show. They were trying to be us, but I mean they had like this sick setup, like 10 different TVs, Evan, and then all these like camera angles. I was like, wow, this is legit. So I think we're seeing more and more of those things. But
I like that. But yeah, I agree with you copy whatever, CPG is doing.
That's right.
All right.
Or
well,
SaaS.
Should we move on to our favorite part of the show, headlines?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yeah. What's up, Alex?
All right.
Benno Bex, 23 hours ago.
Here it is, our thread. I love that we're sourcing from different platforms now, besides just the news, because we all consume on different platforms. Isn't that right? I don't read the news. I'm just kidding. So the Pope was chosen in 2 days. Your remote hire doesn't need 5 rounds of interviews. I said what I said. Initial thoughts, John. Putting you in the hot seat.
Look, I get it. Okay. It's a little different. What this quote makes me think of more is about 2 things: succession planning and keeping a warm candidate pool. That's what it
Mm.
makes me
Yeah.
think of, because they pick from a room full of guys in red dresses. Like, it's not, they're already there for you to pick from. It's not like they're starting from scratch to say, let's post an ad for, papal supremacy. They already had people that were sitting around. But
Yeah.
I get the fact that it takes way too long and too many interviews for too many roles. 100% agree.
Especially
John, I've
local.
posted in the past 99% of interviews should be 3 rounds or less.
Yeah.
Agree, disagree? How do you feel
Nope.
about that?
I agree. I totally
Yeah.
agree. If you can't tell by second round that the person, so to speak, has legs, right? That they're really going to be able to do the work that needs to be done. Why are
Wait,
we?
I have a question.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, what would an interview process look like?
Perfect world. I'm going to caveat depends on the role, but generally screen, interview, assessment, depends on the role, interview, offer, or not offer.
Yeah, and I think it's like almost because when I think of rounds too, it's like you got to define what a round is. Because like I also do think like it can be helpful for candidates to maybe meet some of the team.
Sure.
So, but those aren't
That could be
interviews,
part
right?
of your interview, right? 100%.
And so I
And
think it's
and the
like,
interview that I'm saying is, by the way, not necessarily one-on-one. I don't mean a large group, but like there are
Yeah.
some interviews that we'll do is if I'm the candidate and I'm meeting with Danielle and Joel at once, great. I think
Panel.
that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
I've liked that. At startups I've worked at, we've done, where the person comes into the team without our, CEO, and we just kind of vibe. And it's good because you need multiple opinions and multiple perspectives of like, what are the questions they're asking? Like, do they seem interested? Is it like, how's the vibe? One time I was at a company and we actually hired a felon by accident. It was really crazy because no one like looked him up on
you didn't
Google.
vibe it. You didn't just
They,
sense a vibe.
No, we
I,
didn't get the
I
vibe. But
mean,
then I called my friend who worked in sales. I was like, "Oh, we just hired this guy for our sales role." And he was like, "Dude, did you look him up on Google?" And I was like, "Someone should have done that. Like there were no background checks." So, yeah, but I caught it, which is great.
but I do want to give a shout out to felons. Felons need to be
Yeah,
hired.
no,
Right?
no. It was for like a serious crime. Like it was like a serious like
I just want to give, I know you're
assisted
not
good.
saying.
manslaughter
That's
type
good.
thing.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
just
hire the person who
But
just,
fraud, I
embezzlement
don't care.
be your CFO. I got you.
it's funny with the whole when I think about like interviews, I think the biggest thing is it's just not dragging it out. And so like I'm actually not. I know one company I worked at, they were pretty. They gave the opportunity to speak a lot of different people on the team, and
Mhm.
so I ended up talking to like 5 people on the team. But the whole process took within like 7 to 10 days, and so I think it's like I'm actually okay sometimes if there are more
Yeah,
rounds. It's
speed.
you just can't let it drag out for months.
Yeah.
And but obviously the more rounds you have, the harder it is logistically to get those things scheduled. And the bigger the company, then the harder it is to schedule it out. And so
So true.
I guess I'm not a fan of like the 2 to 3 month like drag out where I'm
Sure.
like, and it's like, what's your plan? Like, and I've had a couple people on my podcast recently who, and this is probably the first time that this conversation has come up a lot, but one of the ways that they're improving candidate experience is by really making sure that interviewers are trained. So they're spending a lot of time on in-depth interview training for the hiring managers
Mm,
and like working together with the recruitment team to figure out what are the questions they actually need to ask versus, hey, let me chat GPT. What are the 10 questions I should ask in an account manager
right.
role? Which, to be honest, a lot of clients I've worked with in the past, from a recruitment standpoint, that is the feeling you get where they are kind of just asking random questions that they think they should be asking. But if you have that plan and you have that timeline down, you can improve the candidate experience with it,
Well,
right?
that's the structure, right? So we don't do a great job of helping hiring managers be set up for success, I would say sometimes, right? For the interview process and to know what to do. But if you have a process that you think you want to try, then try it and tweak it, but keep one. Like this quote that we looked at, the papacy has a process.
Hmm.
It won't work everywhere, right? Like they're lighting incense and praying. I mean, are we going to do that for every candidate hire?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we should. Maybe that's the secret.
This is a building up for like a great video on
Actually,
LinkedIn.
someone actually said the Pope is elected after 4 rounds of ballot, guided by the Holy Spirit. I don't have that, so I will have 8 rounds of interviews just
Yeah,
to.
we've got the corporate Holy Spirit. It's perfect.
That's
It's,
all that
it's
guest,
great.
that quest.
Yes.
I could do with some incense in interviews. I don't see
Yeah,
anything wrong with
that's
some
the
incense
vibe.
burning during the interview.
Yeah.
Why not?
Clear the
Um,
energy.
By the way, I want to also say I posted a similar thing on my business page from the Random Recruiter. So this was a whole, like, I think a lot of people, my one said, if the Catholic Church can pick a new pope in 24 hours, you can fill your software engineering role without dragging it out for 3 months. That one I think is a little bit more like, you don't have to drag out things for 3 months, right?
No.
But this was used a lot, by the way. So I just
Like
Yeah.
Pope Leo sitting down to write some code. He's not going to get picked in 2 days. You know what I mean? Like, you got to know what it is that you're really looking for. I have hired someone that I had one interview with. I've only done it twice in my career, same day, right?
Yeah.
Like, it just,
How'd it work
sometimes
out?
you just know. Great, both times.
That's great.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, I think what I've always thought about interviewing, and this is probably a little bit of a kind of a side conversation, but one of the things I've always felt that's interesting about interviews, like I've had clients that really want to go through extensive interviews and do extensive assessments, and I know we're going to talk about assessments later on in the show, but I've seen that a lot, and then I've also noticed that, man, it's pretty hit and miss. It's like 3 months to 6 months in. It's pretty hit and miss of whether or not somebody's actually gonna, be a fit with the team, like for the candidate and for the company. And I think the whole idea of having an interview span, it's almost like dating, because it is just like you're gonna be on your best behavior, you're gonna say all the right things, and it's just so interesting, It's like, and then you get into the actual relationship, and you're like, oh, what did I sign up for? Either way, so I just think the whole idea of interviewing is just really, it's a fascinating thing, and it's fascinating that you can make a decision, and sometimes it works out where you're at the company for decades, and other times it's like 3 to 6 months, and I don't know if there is like a 100% key for that, right? Which I don't know, maybe there is.
Part of it, in my opinion, is people will ask questions about the things that matter to them.
Yeah.
And currently, I don't think that we have it down to collect those insights on what these people are asking and feed that into talent insights in order to get a more holistic view. And we'll talk to Caitlin in a little bit from Plum about talent insights and how do you create more of a holistic roadmap for that employee. But I think that the interview process is actually really telling if the interviewee knows how to interview, in what they're asking the interviewers throughout the process, and what they continuously bring up, their responses to those things. Like, all this information is information that should be fed into your internal system.
I love it.
Excellent. I mean, I think that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I think and I know I don't know what time it is. I'm not paying attention to anything, so somebody can yell at me. But I mean, I will just say that the more that you think that you're adding to the benefit of your recruiting process, specifically an interview, actually go back to the other employees within the organization and ask them to test it out with you. They're going to tell you it's too long, it's too much. You already have a trusted group there, so test it out on those that are already a part of things. They're going to give you great feedback.
And collecting feedback on the people you just interviewed and maybe even hired.
Right.
Or didn't hire.
Right.
Or ghosted.
No, we don't want that feedback, actually.
That's bad advice, Joel. That's bad
advice. All right. Well, look, we're going to get into some much better advice here. I think we're going to move on to the global report.
Whoop, whoop.
Hi, John.
Privilege of being with my friend Ellen. Good morning. How are you?
I have to tell you, you're like the face. A shiny face I was not expecting this morning. It just made my whole morning.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to actually get this clipped and send it to my wife. That's not how she
Good.
feels. So thank you. I really appreciate that. So we got to hang out last
Yeah,
week. I'm
we
so
did.
glad to do so. So how was Unleash for you?
Unleash was fabulous. Unleash was great. Good
Why?
conversations. It was fun. It was good. It was a you know, we really offered up a different approach this time. I think it was interesting. You guys were just talking about different activations and different
Yeah.
ways to show up. We purposely kept the sales team at home and instead opened up an AI social lounge and said, come in and have conversations. Let's talk about all this stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
It was good. It was great conversations, great friends, great opportunity to connect with people. And I think interesting. So yeah, it
And
was good.
I think that I'm glad you mentioned the booth area, the way that you had it set up. I thought it was awesome
Thank you.
because because it became a very natural place for people to hang out and to have these chats about what they're hearing.
Mhm.
And I mean, honestly, you don't need a sales team if we're gonna have conversations there around recruitment,
Right.
AI, right? Moving the path forward. Of course, you're going to be involved in that conversation. So, do you feel like? Because I also know that the team was kind of spread out last week, right? Isn't that what I think? I know
We
you
were,
guys
we
were
were,
everywhere.
yeah, we were seriously spread out last week. So we had, I did not anticipate a spring event season. I'm used to the fall and we're HR Tech, we're Unleashed like all over the world. We
Right.
were all over the world last week. We were in Singapore, our first showing at HR Tech APAC.
Awesome.
Very interesting. Again, all very
Yeah.
audiences, right? So we're seeing a lot of interesting dialogue and traction happening in the Asian market. And I think what's interesting is their entire approach to how they're exploring and thinking about the implementation of technology in their tech stacks is very different from ours. They're maybe a little less anxious about bringing in the robots, so as we say,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and more concerned about how do you make the data flow, which I think is the next level of conversation, right? So they're kind of there, which I thought was interesting.
So, are they having the? I'm not to cut you off because
Yeah, yeah. Go
we're
ahead.
having a
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, yeah, we're dialoguing. Yeah, what's up?
Are they as worried about bias the way that we hear so much of that in the U.S.?
I don't hear it to the same level. I do hear the
Yeah. Yeah.
conversation, but I don't hear
Yeah.
it to the same level.
Yeah.
And I think it is more. It's interesting. They've started to where I already see the pivot in the conversation there being about how do I manage, program, assess what my technology is doing with
Yeah.
bias as an element that they're looking at with that, rather than how do I what should I be worried about? Right? Does that make sense? Like they're
Yeah.
more worried about how they're managing the tech execution than they are about what could possibly happen, which I
Yeah.
think is a very interesting, different dynamic. So there's a lot of interesting conversations going on around how do you measure technology impact? How do you measure bias in technology? So maybe that's the conversation that they're having. What is the right cadence to explore that? And then, again, we see this around the world. There are different perceptions of what is considered bias and what isn't. And I think you start to see that emerge up as well.
Yeah, and I think that it's fascinating. Again, I know you were in Vegas and Singapore last week. I want
We
to
were
get to the other two places. Where else were you?
We were in Vegas. We were in Singapore. Can you believe I'm I'm blanking. Where was Ryan?
I love
Oh my
that.
God, huge one. We were at OMR. Have you ever heard of this conference?
I haven't. Tell
Okay.
me.
So 70,000 people in Hamburg, Germany, right? It's like the South
Wow.
by Southwest of Central Europe. Rebecca was very excited. She got to hang out with, Ryan, our cool Ryan Deadpool guy. Like,
Yes.
cool. We spoke on it. She spoke on a stage talking to people who are not HR people
Awesome.
about what it means to hire differently. And I thought that was super cool and that was very fun. Our booth literally was sitting next to the Ferrari booth.
Oh my gosh, perfect.
Yeah, that was cool. That was fun. It was a fun experience. We went and did that. Again, large audience, but this is part of that pivot I think we're seeing across the board where the conversation is starting to move And I know this is not always what everybody wants to hear, but it's moving a little bit away from kind of our TA HR hallowed halls where we all sit and have a conversation about how technology is going to come in. And it's starting to be a top-down conversation with the CIO, the CTO,
Yeah,
who is trying to ask questions around how do I move my business forward? It's that,
totally.
yeah, right. It's that dichotomy. We spent all these years saying we wanted to have a seat at the table. I think we're being drugged in, kicking and screaming to the table. We don't always like the conversation, but they're asking us to have a dialogue about it.
Well, and I think that you bring up the great point about speed, right?
Mhm.
So this is whether we're ready or not fully,
Right.
whatever
Right.
that means. Again, everybody has different tolerance for risk,
Mhm.
but it's happening whether you're fully ready or not. And so the speed of application, because the business
Mhm.
is trying to figure out how do we make this work best for us. We need to be competitive. It's a
Right.
globally, we have economic considerations, right? As you know, that are tough.
Right. It's not
So
so
I
easy.
think it's not so easy. So are you hearing I think it's hilarious that you're next to Ferrari, right? When we're talking about
Right.
speed,
Right.
right? Like, are you finding you're hearing from HR and TA professionals that are like, it's freaking me out that it's
It's
moving so quickly?
it's completely freaking them out. I think um, I I want to say this in the nicest way, John.
Come on, it's just us.
It's just not. I mean, let's be honest. Listen, we um, most people, not everybody, I'm
Hmm.
not one of them, but so most people did not land in the TA or HR space because they were huge risk takers, right?
Yeah.
We are a compliance driven entity.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
fundamentally, we're a compliance driven entity, and so the consequence of that is that we're really, really careful. Um,
Yes.
the businesses that we're operating in, I think we serve as that balance point to say, be careful, this could happen, that could happen. We need to worry about what the impact is going to be, and then we have a C-suite and a set of business leaders who are going, move faster, get it going. I don't have time for this. I've got to move my business forward.
Yes.
Getting beaten in the stock market, right? These are the questions they're asking, and they're pushing towards. I don't know the number. I can't even express to you the number of TA and HR leaders who come to me not because they're really eager to make a transition and to move, but because their C-suite has said, "You're going to have to because I'm requiring you to do so." Uh,
Yes.
and here's the risk with that, right?
Yep.
If we wait, and by the way, I'm worried we may have already done it a little bit too much.
A little
If
bit.
we
Yeah.
wait too long, then we'll get the people start dictating how we're going to solve the problem,
Well, I
right?
just want to tell you this. Everything you've said, I think, is spot on. So don't worry. You and I agree, so therefore it must be
Well,
correct.
it must be right. We're well, really, of course.
But it is this conversation that if you look back in a couple of the other iterations of HR in decades
Right.
past, where we have to stop looking at this as how do I take this thing and make it fit into what I want it the same thing to be. I gotta fit this in, as opposed to, you know what, let's go back to square one
That's right. Start over.
and start over. How does this change what we're used to, right? I think that's really hard, certainly for people in general, because change is tough. But when you get into HR, generally, it is really tough because we're kind of stoic in that.
It is super tough to do it, and I think it is the most important thing we have to do right now. We have to be able to take our blinders off, step into the fear a little bit, and allow ourselves to redesign, to
Yeah,
rethink. That's part of the reason we did what we did in Vegas, and we'll continue to do it. This idea, these conversations around All In for AI, they're really meant to prompt people to ask the question: if I could do it, if I could do
yeah,
it all the ways that we've been doing enough of these conferences, right? How many evening cocktails have you had sitting there chatting with people who have brilliant concepts about how we could be thinking about hiring differently, or if we didn't have to do it this way because these were the rules, or what
right.
could we make happen? I think we have a once in a generation moment to actually make some of that stuff happen, but we
Yep.
have to be willing to take a deep breath and go, okay, what would it
Yeah.
take to design this and to do it in the right way,
And
and to do it in a way that meets today's world, not where we were yesterday. I'm going to go on my rant now, John.
no,
Literally, think
No.
about it, we're hiring exactly the same way, just faster with some technology that we were hiring in the 1800s. We
Yeah.
slap a sign up on
Yeah.
a job board instead of the window at the bakery, but it's
Yeah.
the same thing, right?
Yep.
And then we put a whole
Yep.
bunch of rules around it, but that's basically the same framework. Um,
And I think globally, we're seeing the pushback in that as well, right? So the more that the world gets smaller, which we're really, I think more than any other time, I think many organizations, even at the SMB and mid-market level, are feeling the global influence of things much quicker than ever, right? We're not just talking about enterprise level organizations that have offices in Singapore and some of these other places where that I think you see it because of the way in which retail occurs, the way in which trade is occurring, like the way in which raw materials are coming over. All of this, I think people are starting to realize that we cannot just sit back and say, same old with a new pair of sneakers is going to make us okay, right?
Yeah, it's
It,
100%.
it's not. It
It is
just can't be.
100% the fact. And I don't think, I know what our biggest challenge is now is to get past the basic conversations, which is what we're
Yes.
having,
Yes.
and come up with some strategies to put forth into that C-suite to look like we're proactively looking to help them meet this moment, right?
Yes.
And again, like I said, so we had Rebecca up there on the stage. Listen, she had almost of that 70,000 people at that conference. She wasn't even on the main stage. She was on the side stage talking about hiring. She had over 10,000 people come to listen who don't do this every day because
Yep.
they're obviously trying to figure out how to move their businesses forward. They're asking this question, what comes next? And we've got to figure out how to answer that question. I don't know if we all have the answer. I don't have the answer yet, but I think we need to very quickly come up with it.
Well, and I think that your point is right in that while we all love having the late evening cocktail conversations with some really brilliant ideas, it's really about it's the next morning.
Yeah.
It's the next morning. What am I doing with what we talked about last night to now
Mhm.
sort of even test it out, focus group, figure out how we can try to make this move forward. I think we just, to your point, sometimes just sort of say, gosh, that was a great conversation. And
Yeah.
and that's it.
Absolutely. I'm going to throw one at you right now that I think is maybe a little provocative.
Come on, take us home with it. Take us home with it.
Let's think about it. How many people are seriously thinking about how they reimagine how hiring managers actually take over and leverage and execute more of this process? Why do we have to be in the middle of it?
Right.
What would it take for us to think differently to equip them? Because they're the closest to what they need in the business doing the thing. What if we, instead of trying to figure out what's a better intake conversation, and instead figured out what's a better way to enable hiring managers to do this directly well and without me intervening faster and effectively to move their business along? That's a very different conversation and paradigm to think about what we build, right? So I'll leave it to everybody today. What are you doing today to think about getting yourself out of being in the middle and equipping hiring managers to go direct? What would happen if you did that?
Awesome. Look, I told you, I knew you were going to bring it home. Well, fantastic global report today. So great to see you as always.
Great to see you as well, John. It's so good to see you.
Thanks for chatting.
Have a great day. Bye, guys.
Wow. What a convo.
Right?
Loved it.
I mean,
Well, we're here to remind you that we have many shows on this Purple Acorn Network and that we also are a podcast. So you can listen to us on the go.
Scan
How's the
here.
commercial voice?
Scan here.
Yeah.
You gotta scan here in the QR code.
Gotta scan the QR code.
yes.
Love.
Hey, real quick too. I
Over
want to
hours.
just give a quick shout out to that Smart Recruiters view on that rooftop too. It was super dope in Vegas. So
Yes.
it was amazing. So just had to throw that in there.
Good. It was a good time. And really, look, all of these, I know that Danielle, you did a great job, by the way. I want to give a shout out to the voice. But you've got the ones that are scanning through right now. I mean, the conversation with Alin, you're going to hear the same things when you're listening to the Alder Hour. I'm telling you, like Matt is having these smart conversations. My first job with Mike Wood has been hilarious, but really insightful in terms of looking at the evolution of work. So I just want to give shout outs to make sure you check out all of those podcasts.
Go check them out.
Go.
Let's do it. And we got some people to say hi to in the chat too. Matt, it's good to see you. Glad we got to meet. And then Alade, good to see you from Nigeria. We're international. That's right. We got people everywhere.
Yes.
And then Virginia, great always to see you. Had a fantastic night. We're not going to get into everything that went down, but it was amazing. So much fun.
Why do you say it like that? Don't say it like that.
Yeah, say it like that. Well, look, go back. If you missed those QR codes, go back, scan them. Definitely subscribe to all the content. We got amazing guests. We got I love the community and access that we have to just so much knowledge. People who are a lot smarter than myself get to learn all the time. A lot smarter than all of us, especially Adam Posner. But anyway, I think we're gonna move on to our first guest. Who's calling it?
Hello. Welcome, Caitlin.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
Hi, John.
Caitlin.
I love your background. It's so cool. You have a mix of business and pleasure, it looks like. I love that.
Thank you. It's real. It's not fake.
It's not AI. That's a good thing to start with. Well, why don't you, I know who you are because we were at the Plum dinner together at Transform in Vegas, which was unbelievable. I'm still dreaming about it, actually. One of the best steaks of my life, but also the conversation. So why don't you, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, just give us a little bit of like who you are and what you do best.
So I'm Caitlin MacGregor. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Plum, and we are a software platform that has disrupted the legacy assessment platforms that you're used to, like the SHLs and Hogans. We created something where people actually enjoy completing their Plum profile, and candidates and employees can use it for their own development and benefit from their own data, and really focusing on the science that predicts performance and retention, and allowing that data to add science and visibility into your hiring and retention strategies.
I love that so much. And funny enough, when I was at ERE, I told this really quick story about how when I was being onboarded to a certain company at one point, they had given me a survey, had me fill out my whole profile, and in it they asked me, "Are you allergic to anything?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't eat gluten or dairy." And a few days later, I got a box in the mail that was baked by Melissa Cupcakes, amazing, which they make gluten-free ones that were not gluten or dairy free. And I was like, you guys have the data. Like, why don't you just leverage it? So that kind of reminds me of like why things like, and by the way, I ended up leaving that company. I got poached just a few weeks later, and I was already thinking about leaving. But like that kind of was like the nail in the coffin. I was like, why would I stay somewhere that like is literally wasting my time if they're not even reading what I'm giving them? Then that's kind of indicative of probably the employee experience. But
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in 2025, we have the ability to know who our employees are and to really customize so that we're setting them up for success. Because if we're setting up the individual for success, the business is going to succeed. This is not, this is a very simple process that you can add that gives so much value to the individual and allows us to tailor setting them up for success.
Totally. And it really does remind me that, and something that I think you talk about is that the hiring system is a bit out of touch with reality. Can you go a little bit deeper about what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, right now, resumes are treated as proof of somebody's worthiness. And there's so many reasons why that's outdated and backwards. The first part is that if we look at what resumes are actually capturing, the majority of the time, it's really looking at perishable skills, things in past that have been talked about as like hard skills. Before we used to, value somebody in software development that had Python. But the reality is that with AI disrupting jobs, in very short order, those hard skills, those perishable skills, the shelf life, a year ago, the research was saying 50% of them would be irrelevant 2.5 years from now. Now with AI, we're getting down to the matter of months. Do you want to hire somebody in social media that's been doing social media the same way for the last 10 years? Or do you want somebody that's leveraging how to use Sora and AI tools to be able to produce completely differentiated content from your competitors and using the latest technology to do 3 times the volume? We need to be approaching almost every job from a brand new perspective. But what's going to endure and actually predict performance and retention are people's durable skills. Those transferable soft skills are human skills, things like innovation, communication, execution. So if this is what actually predicts performance, it's what allows somebody to excel over their peers, it's what's going to be durable throughout their career. We should be measuring it and allowing people to have a fair shot at standing out for these new roles based on these durable skills. But that
Right.
means you need to get that data as early as possible and use it throughout the process.
Right. And I've definitely heard this before, like, you know, and specifically about my generation, where we tend to be very like highly adaptable given the environment. I mean, I graduated into the pandemic. I'm highly adaptable because of that, but also other things in my life. But I've never really heard someone talk about measuring that. So can you walk us through how you actually measure things like adaptability and communication and innovation in, a candidate or a team member?
Yeah. I mean, this is great. Lots of organizations are talking about becoming skills-based organizations, but how are you actually measuring it? And it's not a whole bunch of keywords that are being stuffed on a resume or a whole bunch of keywords in a job
Yeah.
description. So it starts with, in our case, but we're not the only one on the market, is that when you're asking somebody to upload their cover letter and resume, it's also taking a second to say, hey, and can you complete your profile? Or if you've already completed your profile, can you please submit it? So in our case, it's a 25-minute untimed assessment, and it's assessing people's personality in a way that you can't fake or game. It's looking at problem solving ability without language or math that tend to discriminate against certain socioeconomic groups. And it's looking at something called social intelligence, which is really how do you solve people problems? And so in 25 minutes, we can get an incredibly accurate read on what drives somebody, gives them a sense of self-worth, actually gets them out of bed in the morning excited about their job and comes easily and naturally to them. And on the flip side, what drains them? It's not that they can't do it. It's just that if they spend too much time on those draining activities, you're not getting the best out of somebody. That's something that could be delegated to someone else. So this is something where a candidate or an employee can completely take on their own for free, and they can use it when they're applying to submit. And what that does is that an employer can match their thousands of resumes, thousands of applicants that they're getting bombarded with these days. And they can actually shortlist based on who are the strongest behavioral fits. If you need somebody that's going to be innovative and adaptive, who are the ones from your pile of people that apply that's actually their greatest strength? That's the thing that drives them. So we can shortlist based on data that is 4 times more accurate than a resume at predicting on-the-job performance and retention in a positive experience where people want to complete this. They want to stand out for this data. We have a 93% completion rate, and 94% of candidates say that they value the data and the experience to be seen, not for what they've done historically, but what they could do if given the opportunity.
That is so not just cool, but I think it's beautiful. Like I'm someone who I think I'm higher on like EQ probably than I am on like experience because I haven't worked that long. And I feel like for many people who are at this, point in their lives, they're 26, 27, or even younger where they're graduating, it's like might not even know what I want to do next. But your assessment might actually be able to tell me what are my strengths if I'm not able to, figure that out myself. And also, what are the roles that I might not have considered before that I maybe should consider. And I think this like predictive, AI is starting to come into the market for job seekers. Like I was at LinkedIn last week. They showed us that now with the job search tool, you can actually look for like, jobs that help make our city better, based on my current skills. It's this predictive sort of tool that can help you find things that you might not have thought of before. And I think when it comes to skills, that's actually extremely important for people.
Absolutely. I think that Gen Z, looking at 18 to 28-year-olds is a market that we need to be talking a lot more about for a whole bunch of reasons.
Absolutely.
One is that entry-level jobs are disappearing. AI is coming for the repetitive administrative tasks. And that's often where people started their careers, in something that was low level, that companies wanted to pay less money to, and they would give entry-level positions to the incoming generation out of high school, out of university, out of college. And those jobs now are being replaced the fastest by AI. And we see that 94% of employers are asking for 3 years of experience for entry-level jobs in the related field. So we're missing this on-ramp to give people experience. And I also question, what would we be teaching people just entering the workforce? Again, do you want to teach them how you've been doing something for the last decade? Is that actually what the company needs? Or are Gen Z actually this amazing opportunity to come in as a clean slate and look at doing things brand new from a new perspective with new tools, and actually helping the organization adopt these incredible tools that are going to help them outperform the competition? And so it comes down to, then, if you want a clean slate and you want somebody that can do things brand new from the beginning and figure it out, what are you measuring? Well, that's where it comes back to. Measuring these durable skills are critical. And most of us, doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, most of us actually don't know what makes us exceptional. We don't know our superpowers. And that's why having an assessment really allows for that self-awareness, as well as the employer to understand, hey, this person is going to be amazing as we're bringing departments together and flattening the organization. Their strength is in teamwork and building bridges with others. This person's amazing in, helping come up with out-of-the-box ideas and adapting to new situations. This person's amazing at persuading, and they're going to be able to think about talking to customers in a new way. And so being able to place people where they're going to use those to help create new processes and use new tools, it really is the foundational layer, and yet it's completely missing from the hiring process.
Totally agree. I love that. I love that you're talking about the next generation. I think we highly underestimate their abilities, and we've actually been begging for harder work for a good amount of time, because we are the most, educated generation in history and most culturally diverse. So I will say that I love that train. I'm going to hop on that, and we should definitely talk more. But where can people find out more about you and about Plum and what you're building?
So plum.io, if you want to complete your own Plum profile, it's completely free. Go and get that self-awareness, use it to promote yourself, share your top talents on LinkedIn. And then you can sign up and see how an employer can use this to then match people to their jobs, and to use this as the foundation for employee development.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And also check out the Plum report with Torrin Ellis. You guys published an amazing piece of work with Torrin, who's a friend of the show. And go check that out.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Bye.
All right. This is time for the ERIN shout out. All right. I'm going to put on my podcast voice again. Guys, if you do not know who ERIN is, you are missing the plot. That's right. ERIN is the tool for employee referrals. And if you don't have your red shoes, you're also missing the plot. All right. These shoes are alpha. Just look at them. They're red. They are show-stopping red. So if you do not know ERIN, go check them out. ERIN app. And also, thing to note, ERIN has been taking the lead in the number of employee referrals, and they just won an HR Tech Award at Unleash. So they are definitely out there. They're getting noticed. They're groundbreaking new technology for all employee referral needs. Please go check out ERIN today.
Hello.
Don't know how I get so lucky to chat with one of my favorite people in the world. Hooray. 2 so far. I got to chat with Alin and now Maren Hogan. What a great morning. How are you, my friend?
I'm wonderful, and it's so good to see your face again. I know we just saw each other at Unleashed, but it's really good I can never get enough,
I
John.
was just going to say that I can never get enough, Maren. So this is perfect. Hey, for everyone, which is shocking, who may not know you, anyone who's listening who may not know you and your background, can you give us like a good 30 seconds on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Maren Hogan. I run Red Branch Media, which is a full service marketing and advertising agency for HR tech services and products. And I've been around, as you intimated, for quite some time, a couple of decades now, showing in this early West Coast morning. But you know what? I'm here.
Yes.
The hair's
You are
working
here.
at least, so just pay
Yes.
attention to that.
For both of us, the hair is lit today, both of us. Yes. You mentioned seeing each other last week on Unleash. I'm curious, what was your take overall on Unleash? What did you observe?
Look, I don't want to paint a rosy picture. I think people are really unsure. It was a great show. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
Unleash is always fantastic for networking and for especially for startups. I work with a lot of startups. They love the energy there. They do a lot for the vendors, which is my particular area of interest. But it was people are worried. There's a bit of chaos. Everyone wants to disrupt. Everyone's feeling that innovation. We're kind of coming, I know it's been a while, but we're coming off the tail end of that pandemic, and everybody was just sort of starting to get their confidence back, and then all of this upheaval. So
Yeah.
I think people have amazing ideas. They want to get out there, but there was definitely a feeling of, okay, but what's going to happen next
Yeah.
to change these plans?
Yeah.
That said, it hasn't stopped the innovation one bit. I've seen a ton of new tools, all doing different things. There's a lot of candidate experience talk again, which I hadn't heard for a while. You know how we have our causes that we cycle through every few conference seasons. But yeah, I love this. It was a really long answer.
No. It was great because actually, from like a follow up perspective, leaning into your expertise, and I don't want to have you give away your secret sauce, so that's not what I'm asking. But when you are dealing with an uncertain environment, right, like you were just talking about, when you will try to approach it from a business perspective, in marketing channels, what kind of message do we want to put out there? What kind of content do we want to put out there that is not ignorant of the fact that there's some uncertainty? What are your recommendations? Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, I think it was Caitlin perhaps that was just talking about this and the proliferation of AI tools and how do you stand out. And I think one of the ways that you stand out is, and I preach this all the time, transparency, vulnerability. Like, let's not pretend like you have, a giant sales team. Let's say this is a few people who believe in this and are trying to get this out into the market. So I think those two things are really important. I also think somebody recently, I think it was Mike from Crosscheck, and he said we want to be an aspirin, not a vitamin. And that's something that we preach all the time. You need to solve a pain point. You can't just be a nice to have, especially in times of economic and political upheaval. And politics affects HR way more than a lot of other professions, maybe legal, but it affects us. I'm an ancillary. Adjacent to HR, and I see the effects, and then I'm sure HR people in the trenches see the effects, and then their employees see the effects. So that's what I would say: is just be transparent and vulnerable, and don't put too fine a point on it. Don't make it a nice to have.
And I think because especially, as you and I know, there are, whether it was at Unleash or Transform or some of these other conferences, HR Tech this fall, that there are a lot of startups still in the space that are trying to find their position, right? Trying to find their way. They know that they have a problem to solve for, but they're not always certain about how do I approach it in light of the environment that I'm a part of. I'm the small fish in a big pond. But I think there's plenty of room for it, right? When we look at the way in which technology allows for these organizations to, take off.
Right.
A lot of it has to do with not having the skill set for some of them, brilliant CEOs or founders, right, of some of these startups, they don't know how to get the message across. And I wonder if you, I don't know, like, have you found that you're having some good conversations with startup founders to say, help, help? They're asking you, help me, get across what I need to say.
Yeah, I'm definitely having good conversations with startups throughout the space. I think they are more passionate than I anticipated.
Huh.
I was listening to Danielle, and I have all three of my kids are in Gen Z. The oldest one is like a little bit millennial,
Yep.
but I just swear this generation is just going to save us. Like this passion and this, they
Yeah.
sort of are pioneering that transparency. I say it all the time. Like you see, a Gen X would never be caught dead crying about a breakup on TikTok, but they're putting it out there. That vulnerability, that honesty, that like, this is hard. I hate this. I don't want to do this part of my job. I want to work in my strengths. And I think the startup CEOs, product engineers, product marketers, all of these people, they exemplify that.
Mm-hmm.
They're honest about what's going on, but they're also like, they don't know that what has been touted to them as a weakness as part of their generation, it's a bad thing. It's actually their superpower. That's actually where the messaging can truly become something special and unique.
So when you and we've got like a minute or so left, but I would love to hear from you, like, as you look at the rest of this year, right? We're almost halfway through. It's sickening to say, but we're almost halfway through. What do you think people should be thoughtful of from the space, right? Whether it's messaging, whether it's promotion, what would you encourage or suggest?
This is probably not going to make me very much money, but I would encourage and suggest empathy all the way down the line. I just sort of talked about how Red Branch is a bit of a canary in a coal mine because we see the ripple effects kind of before they start to happen.
Yep.
In terms of reduction of spending, or in terms of like the general attitude and calm or lack thereof within our client base. But I think that empathy it needs to trickle up. We need to be able to understand, or it needs to trickle down. We need to be able to understand that in that, Red Branch to HR tech vendor to HR professional to employee, at the bottom level, every single person in that supply chain is struggling.
Yeah.
Whether they know it or not, they're struggling with that uncertainty, and it's a tough tightrope. And so I think building that empathy into your sales process, into your messaging, into your product, is really going to make a difference.
I love that. Maren, awesome. Great to see you as always. Thanks for joining us this morning. Good to see you.
Too.
Bye.
At Humereso, we're not just another HR consultancy. We're a team of dedicated experts wanting to bring your business forward. Our Humereso Technology Solutions, HTS, are a different kind of HR tech. Give real-time insights without overwhelming managers with too much data. So whether you're a growing startup, an established company, our human resources outsource support, payroll management are all there to help drive your business forward. So check us out and see what Humereso could do for you today.
Good morning, beautiful people. Today on the HR Weather, let's talk about a trend that Gen Z is trying to make mainstream. So this trend is called microshift. I had never heard of it until last week, and honestly, I wanted to hate it. So what are microshift? You got to think about them as small changes in your daily work habits. So instead of a traditional 9 to 5 workday, you're inserting short resets throughout the day. So for me, it's a quick walk, could be yoga, or whatever else that gets your mind refocused. I also do the laundry as well. I think that just gets me completely refocused. Basically, it's less about your time in the seat, more about managing your energy. And this matters to Gen Z, but to other generations as well. 77% of Gen Z say mental health is their top workplace priority. I need to do a completely different weather report on that. That's a bit crazy, but it is the fact. It's what the surveys say. But for companies that are embracing microshift, it could lead to more present, creative, and loyal employees. So if you're in HR and this makes a lot of sense to you, this is how you should approach it. You need to build a culture that encourages micro breaks without judgment. And that's really hard to do. You need to offer flexibility, not just in your schedule, but just in the mindset, the whole culture of the organization. And if you want, you can normalize wellness rituals as part of performance. Not a lot of companies do it, but I think it has a lot of value if you're promoting wellness within your employees. Or you can ignore all of it, which I kind of get as well. Gen Z is trying to reshape the workplace, and I get it. I think they need to. Like the way we've worked forever, uh, we're definitely working in different conditions, different environments. So it makes a lot of sense that they're looking at ways of maximizing their energy so they can perform as best as they can. And I think we need to adjust and adapt to it. So, because the last thing we want is a bunch of disengaged Gen Z workers in the workplace. That's the HR weather. And let's get back to the panel. All right. It's micro shifts, just to make sure that you guys understood that, right? Like this has been a whole Gen Z episode. Danielle, obviously I have to go to you
Yes.
first here. Have you ever heard of micro shifts? And is it something that makes sense for you?
Yeah, that's right. Bow down, Joel. No, I have not heard of it until today, but I'm not surprised. We've heard of, micro retirements and micro this, micro that. I think at the end of the day, we're just trying to get more flexibility in our daily schedules. And if you read the article, there's like multiple reasons why this is happening. One of them being that 1 out of 5 people are balancing more than one job. So if you really think about that, I think that kind of tells you that people need, just like they need more flexibility. Like there's no, in order to make ends meet and to survive and to feed their families, like we were talking about before, like they need this kind of flexibility to like balance everything. And if you read even more, because I did read this article, guys.
Wow, that's new.
You also will know that AI is enabling much of like the micro shifting that's happening within the schedule and like the day to day in industries like retail, hospitality. AI is actually allowing for shorter shifts in these less regulated industries, like not like healthcare, but the other ones. So
Yeah.
I think it like aligns with what is realistic and what people need. And I don't think that it just stops at Gen Z. I think we're just kind of on this train of we have nothing to lose and therefore we will keep creating these terms that basically are just telling us the same thing, that we want more flexibility in our day to day.
Which can be a challenge depending on if it's an employer labor market or an employee labor market. In its current state, I think it's going to be more challenging for a lot of Gen Z workers to get like these micro shifts. But I could be wrong. I do think there's a lot of benefits to it. And most of us that have been working remote have been doing micro
We're
shifts
doing
for a
it.
long time.
Yeah, I do it.
Just start smoking cigarettes. Then you could just take cigarette breaks.
Yeah. Isn't that
Bring back the
professional?
cigarette break.
This is what it's a healthy way to get those micro shifts. Just
Yeah,
start
that's
smoking.
That's the funny thing about like this whole like what is professional conversation, is because it always changes. In the 50s it was like, oh, let's smoke in the office, or let's, in the 80s it's let's step outside, or I guess maybe not. You were maybe still smoking in the office back then. I don't really know. But now it's like, all right, let's go for a vape walk, like let's go smoke our vapes and like take a meeting. So it's like the idea of what even is professional is, in my opinion, outdated, and like no one really knows what it is.
Well, I think there is a difference of taking smoke breaks and actually doing something that's beneficial to your health, like going for a walk or something like that. But John, what's your take here?
Well, I think that it's a classic article that is overgeneralized. Yay, there I am. Because the two largest I forget now which research was just done. The two fields that are going to see the highest rate of growth are going to be in the medical field and
Mm,
wind engine turbine mechanics.
yeah.
You are not going to be hanging off of a windmill and say, "Oh, dude, it's been 6 hours. I want my micro shift." Right? Like some of the roles are going to
Yeah.
require nurses are working 12-hour shifts,
Yeah.
right? And part of that is because the infrastructure is what it is. Do I appreciate the fact that we're trying to push for change? I totally do, and I think some of
Yeah.
this makes sense. I just think we always have to be careful about overgeneralizing. We don't have enough people to cover all the times. We don't have enough people, right? So we have to be thoughtful about how tech fits into this as well.
Right, but why is it that we don't have enough people? It's because there isn't more flexibility in the roles. It's because the
Because we're
working
not having babies.
because
That's
working
really why we don't have enough people.
I'm
Truly,
having
but
babies.
also because
you
nursing
can't.
isn't popular.
The whole thing isn't on your back, Joel.
It's no Serge too.
I
Me and
have
Serge
three
are having
myself.
babies.
I have
Yeah.
3.
I
I know.
take it like
Yeah, Joel's having more babies than the average.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I will say though, John, I kind of do agree with Danielle in terms of I do think like the industry you described, like healthcare, I think is a great example of this. Where whenever I bring up to anyone who's in healthcare about this idea of can we work in some flexibility, can we work in some like control, it's always met with like a hard no, resistant. And I think just understanding how the generation coming in thinks about things, like they do want control, they want some flexibility. I think there's some sort of like
Sure.
in between.
Yeah, they're not
But
going to go into nursing.
I also noticed a lot of the executives in healthcare, man, a lot of them seem to be a little bit what I would consider out of touch with like what's going on in the front lines.
I would say to
Personal
you,
opinion.
I hear you, and I'm not disagreeing. I think we have to
Yeah.
look at the area of the medical world we're talking about. If you're talking about home health care, it's hard to tell someone I need some flexibility.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy, I can't make it over today. We don't always have that option, right? We have people's lives at stake for some of this. I'm not
And
saying
if
all
and
industry.
if you read the article, like when you incorporate AI into more of the scheduling of like, who can cover what shift
Yes,
when,
yes,
which I
yes.
think a lot of these agencies that, provide home health care actually they have a hard time with scheduling because A, there's a shortage, but also B, the scheduling of it all.
100%.
I think that when you have those types of solutions, that type of field becomes more interesting for people because it's like, oh, I'm not going to have job insecurity. I'm going to have more security because there's more of a need for what I do. And also, I know that there's more flexibility in that.
Yeah,
So that's my argument
yeah,
is like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
also if we're talking about reimagining the way that we do things, as we've been talking about the entire show, like why aren't we asking the question of, well, why not, like
Yeah.
why can't we change the regulations of the average amount of time a nurse works, like why can't these things change? And I think the answer is, well, they can, it's just harder to do that.
Yeah, at one point we're gonna have no choice. There is going to be a high demand for those really hard to find roles
Yes,
like nursing
yes.
and flexibility of maybe shorter shifts, but more shifts. I don't know what that looks like, but
I will say though, there has to be. I think you do gotta, to John's point, when you come into the workforce. Like I do think potentially it needs to be some more understanding that the way that things are, there are reasons for that as well. So I think it's like it just seems like the disconnect between boomer generation and Gen Z is like insane.
Mm,
And it's like there's almost like when both of them get together for conversations, it's like very much a lot of talking and not necessarily listening. And so
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing of like you can't just be like, "Oh, you're the same age as my grandkids, so what you say doesn't matter." And at
mm,
the same time, as Gen Z, you can't be like, "Hey, you're just a granddad, go retire." Like there's we gotta have some more of these like real conversations to have the solutions. And I think that is a tough thing because it just it's multi-generational struggles, which have probably already or always existed.
And there's a great podcast on this network that talks about that exactly. So Danielle, check out from, what is it, Gen Z
It's
to
called From
Boomers,
X to Z,
X to
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's
Z.
a weekly podcast with me and Mervin Bedinnen, who is amazing, and I think he's actually a boomer, but we're not going to tell him I said that, okay? But he is a Gen X, and he and I go head to head, and we talk about the differences
Wow.
in opinion between the generations. And he gives me a lot of insight as to like what the boomers are thinking, right? And the Gen Xers in the world. Because he's of that generation, one of them. I don't
We
know.
love you, Mervin. We love you.
Yeah, we love you,
Mervin's a
Mervin.
legend.
Mervin's the man.
He told me that he's been to every single Arsenal game, like home game, which is
He's so cool.
big for like
Wow.
decades. I was like,
But-
dude, that's
That
sick.
is centuries.
Said
So,
Arsenal
like, where are these
sucks.
conversations happening? They're not. So we're trying to bring them to
Yeah, yeah.
the audience, the
You
world.
can download that via tape.
It's actually doing really well, the podcast. I think it's
Was it you humble bragging right now?
Well,
yeah.
she's been bragging the whole show.
Yeah,
so,
yes.
it's
It's
been.
amazing.
I read the
You should
article
check it out.
6 times.
I actually
She
read the
She's
article.
bragging. It's Danielle,
I read the article. I'm prepared.
Go there.
Before
all
I
right.
let you go, I need a poll between should I regrow
poll.
the goatee or
We'll
keep
poll
it?
next week.
Yeah. We'll wait 4 months for you
You
to
don't-
grow that thing.
You don't need to put goatee in air quotes. That is actually what it's called.
Honestly, man, I'm actually used to it now. Like the amount of time I've
Yeah?
seen it, like I actually think you look like very like just a curious HR pro. So I like it.
That's exactly the look I'm looking for. Danielle, I need keep it or regrow.
Oh, Danielle.
Pass.
Pass. I knew.
All right. Well, that's the
Microchip.
intro.
Hey,
Whether
let us know in the
we-
chat. What do you think? Does Serge need to grow back the goatee? Let us know in the chat. Yes or no? Serge regrowing. We've got a little bit of time here. It's probably going to take a couple months for that to happen anyway. So
Oh, it's going to take a couple days. I'm a very manly man, George.
Guys, I think it's time for our final guest.
I
Get
think
Serge
so.
off the stage.
Dude, I can't believe he's been waiting all this time. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Let's get him on here.
Dan's a pro.
All right. It took me like 10 minutes to answer that call, but we got Dan Riley in the house. Dan, welcome. Good to have you here.
I am happy to be here. It's my honor. It's awesome.
Is it an honor? Now
Yeah.
you've got to tell us what your favorite thing about Gen Z is. I'm just kidding.
You know what? My favorite. I'll answer that very straight up. Fresh voices, new ideas.
Yeah.
We need to disrupt old ways of thinking. Just because
Cool.
we've done it for so many years, that doesn't mean we should keep doing it. So,
Yeah.
I love being Gen X. I think it's the coolest generation. But
No one ever has a problem with Gen X. I just want to say, like, Gen X is always like badass. Like, no one has a problem with, like, always calm, cool, and collected. Like, I've never met an uncool Gen X person. I just want to throw it out there.
Yeah, I mean, but Gen Z. I mean, I'll put it out there. We need at events, conferences. I know we'll talk about Unleash a little bit. We need more voices. We need younger voices.
Yeah.
Work is changing. Work is being redesigned, and we need to do better with that. And so I appreciate the work that you all do, and you amplify that and put a spotlight on that. So.
I love it. I love it. Dan, well, look, for anyone who doesn't know you, why don't you give us a quick intro, who you are, what you do, who you do it for? Is that right?
Yeah. So I'll try to keep it to like 45 seconds if I can. So I've been in the, they always say like, it's always bad to say, I've been in the space for 20 some years. But it's funny. I keep saying 20 now, but I think it's more like 25. So I've been, and to be quite frank, I introduced myself first as an artist, a musician, a filmmaker, and I
love
just
that.
happened to fall into the HR tech space by chance. I was coding since I was 10 years old.
What?
Yeah, well, my dad worked at IBM, and he brought home, I kid you not, the very first prototype, the PC prototype. Like even before it was released, like it was this huge box, and then so I was obsessed. I started programming adventure games,
So
and
cool.
yeah, so I've been doing that for for years. I founded a company called Modern Survey. We were actually the first employee SaaS listening platform. Built that up.
So are we talking about like employee engagement then, like
Yeah,
a
I mean,
Gallup type thing?
that was kind of the bread and butter, but we really did full life cycle, and we wrapped people analytics wrapper around it to really,
Cool.
in the days of predictive analytics. Built that, sold that to Aon. I led the global Aon culture practice for 3 or 4 years during the transition in the tech integration. Then I founded a company called Radical, and Radical, when we started, was a movement, was a change movement. We founded the company during the pandemic, and it was all about our very simple statement was organizations need to do better for the people
Come on.
whom they employ. Like that was it. We knew work was getting ready to be turned upside down. Left was right, right was left, up was down, down was up. So we started there. We've been building a very large platform. We've just soft released it last week. It is a platform that is all about building connection. This connection ultimately focuses on clarity. It focuses on trust. It focuses on capability, and I can get into what the platform does, but it really helps build incredible teams and allows people to get to know each other more authentically, trusting each other more authentically, with more trust, with more understanding, with more care, with more clarity, again, on what we're trying to accomplish, by leveraging, of course, the word we all talk about, which is AI.
Say it. Just say it.
Yeah, so it kind of we understand the individual, we understand the team construct, we understand what are we trying to accomplish, and then we sort of put that into a big blender, and we provide risk assessment. It's fun, it's social. You can compare profiles with each other, and we're just releasing that. So ultimately, we accelerate our mission. We accelerate work impact for people, teams, and organizations.
So timely. I just heard Gallup surveys came out. Employee engagement's it's lower than it was during the pandemic. Which when I heard that, it's understandable in a lot of ways, and you can see how these shifts have happened. But it's like disappointing, and I think it's something that we got to look at. Leaders need you need to look at and just go like, what, how is this possible? Like, why is this happening? And I think a lot of it, like you said, is misalignment and clarity. Is a lack of trust right now. It's and I think someone mentioned it. Maren was talking about that atmosphere even at Unleash. Like there can be that sense of kind of like fear and like what's going to happen, and and I think as business leaders can't just ignore that and say, yeah, well, what we're doing is right. We got to look at like how do we solve that. So what's kind of been what's been like the response with maybe beta users and people that you've had? I'm sure you've had people kind of using it. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think being a forever entrepreneur, you always you imagine and what could go wrong. You believe you have to stay focused on your purpose and what your mission is and what you're trying to accomplish. But of course, you get into the weeds and you obsess, as I do about things. Yeah, I mean, the feedback has been phenomenal. Primarily because I think it gives you this novel data and these insights about people you work with really starting to understand what makes them tick, right? And that's that connection piece. And once you understand somebody a little bit more, it's so much easier to trust them. So our data, to your point around engagement, we go a little wider than that. Right now, 9% of employees, workers, only 9% feel like they have a sense of overall work impact, which is comprised of clarity, capability, and connection. 9%. So about 1 out of 10 workers feel like, that they have what they need. They have the appropriate relationships. They have the appropriate direction. They have the connections in the workplace. We've moved away or should be moving away from hierarchy. We need to be focused on how work gets done, and that's more in a team construct. And so everything we do is focused on people working together, understanding each other to achieve extraordinary results. And so with that, it's the right thing to do. But the reality is that drives productivity, that drives work progress, that drives speed, right? That drives results. So there's a personal side to it, and there's I think a playful and a fun side to it. And I want to get to know you. Work is important. We all work a lot. We all come to work every day. And so imagine if we understand each other a little bit more. We understand what our goals and our purposes are, and most people don't. And so that's what we're solving for. And so, yes, the feedback has been, where has this been all my life?
It's huge. I think even in just having conversations around my favorite topic, which is return to office, one of the things that is really interesting to me is what you just said about when people are feeling happy, when they're feeling engaged, when they're feeling connected, right? They're more productive. And we were just talking about this earlier on the show around this whole topic of like flexibility and control, and how there's a desire for, some workers coming in. They want to have these things. And that's why it's important, because when people have what they want or what they need out of work, they're going to perform better. And that doesn't get talked about a lot. Like if you start forcing people, they're going to become unengaged. I know we don't have a ton of time here, but I'm curious from your perspective. You're at Unleash.
Yeah.
What was your kind of overall first of all, I'd love to kind of get your overall sense of just the conference as a whole, and like what you're feeling in terms of interactions.
Yeah.
But I'd also be curious, like what your goal is when you're going to conference, and like what you're looking for, what you're paying attention to, like what are the talks you're listening to?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to keep it brief. I know we don't have tons of time.
10 seconds. Just kidding.
Well, if I had to give you 10 seconds, it's all about the conversations in between. And let me explain that. So yes, going to conferences to learn is amazing, and there's incredible speakers, incredible panels. I have a great relationship with Unleash. I ran a panel myself. I've moderated stages at Unleash. So I've tons of respect for what Mark has done and what he's built over the years. And he's done a great job at it. But what's the most important opportunity, it's the small talk. It's the between sessions. And again, it comes back to that connection. How are you? What are you up to? How's your family? It's getting to know each other. We too often jump into, give me your sales pitch. And look, I get it. We have to do that from time to time. But that's what I love about conferences. And Unleash, I think, creates an environment that's very welcoming and brings us together. And I think it's a community, I believe, and I know it's a community where we're all fighting for the same common purpose, which is making work better. And so that would be my real fast feeling about Unleash. I mean, I could go on and on about the speakers and the panels but to me, it is about that connection. It's the hallway conversations. It's the in-between moments. That's the beautiful part of of any great event.
Yep. I've noticed that and observed that myself. Even I think just serendipitous conversations, right? Like those conversations that you don't expect to happen. They are so powerful, right? And it's like, then how can you follow up with those? How can you continue to build the relationships as well? Dan, I've appreciated our short conversation. But I would love to. We're gonna have to get you back on the show too, because I think there's a lot to unpack here, and I think even just the insights you're bringing are great. And I would love to get like even a touch point on when the new product launches, like what that looks like and what the results are, because it's super timely. Where can people find out more about you? Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so I guess, well, two places. I mean, LinkedIn, of course. So you can find me. I have a distinctive photo with my glasses and shaved head. Not that anybody in HR has HR tech has glasses, but if you type in Dan Riley Radical minus the A at the end, you will find there, or radicalwork.com. So again, radical without the A, so RADICL work.com. And yeah, I mean, there's so much we could chat about. I would love to come back on and dive deeper. I guess my final statement for everyone would be just to it is, and I think Maren said it best. It is a little bit chaotic, and empathy has to be our friend right now. We have to find common ground for political unrest. I don't need to describe what's happening all around us. But we have to find ways to come together, and it takes community, it takes people, it takes connection, it takes everyone with the common purpose. What a movement is, that's how we get stuff done, and we have to lift each other up when we not fail, but when we fall, and keep moving. So and change, and I will say my final statement is change is momentum. Change isn't arrival. We never arrive. We keep evolving. So love everyone. I love the show you guys do, and I was honored to be speaking with Maren and Caitlin, and Danielle has been a great friend of mine, and so this, I felt like it was kind of a homecoming of just some amazing people. So honored to be on, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thank you so much for your time. We will get you on again. And guys, be sure to go check out Dan Riley, John Baldino's lookalike. Just kidding.
But no. All is beautiful. What can we say?
Hey, I'm not. Look, I agree with you. I agree.
I mean, from what I can tell, you have a pretty good set of hair. I'm pretty sure. So, I might take it.
It's fading. But
yeah.
All right, Dan. Well, thanks so much. Right? We will talk soon, and I think we're about to wrap the show up.
All right.
See you, Dan.
Amazing.
Hey.
Big guy.
What a legendary just show, conversations. I think everything just was better without Serge's facial hair.
It must be. That's clearly what it is. Yes. Yes.
Goatee. We don't miss
Poor
it.
Serge. Poor
R.I.P.
Goatee.
I love it. Well, we want to thank our sponsors, ERIN, again, number one employee referral platform. Look, I will say it is getting harder and harder to reach people with recruitment and traditional recruitment. I talk to recruiters all the time. Our inboxes are full. So if you can make a genuine connection using the employees that you have, leveraging employee referrals, if you don't have a system in place, especially if you're a large organization, you need to be talking to ERIN. You also get sloths. So, I mean, sloths pretty much do it for me. And red shoes, which you can sign up for. And then let's do, guys, if you are not following Purple Acorn on LinkedIn,
do it.
Do it now, okay? Wow. We need 100 followers on our page, all right? Otherwise, Evan's not getting a bonus. We have 10,000 followers. But you can also check out all of our shows on purpleacornnetwork.com. We ran through those QR codes as well, but there are so many good conversations. I think we have a show every single day. The network is growing. We've got new shows on the horizon as well that we're super excited about. And if you see us at conferences, we are like the Purple Acorn like family. All right, you can come in, join the crew. We have a great time. So please go find us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Hit that subscribe, hit that follow, leave us a review, talk about how great Serge's facial hair is or isn't. he's so mad backstage
So
right
mad.
now. But we appreciate all of you. John, thank you so much for spending your time with us
sure.
and just
Thanks for having me.
bringing the true HR knowledge and
Bringing
vibes to the show
the
as well.
aromatic flavors.
Oh, like that. Yes. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, John, one more time, where can people find out about you? Where can people connect with you with Humereso?
Humereso.com or LinkedIn, John Baldino, HR. I should pop right up.
Love it. Love it.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, everyone in the chat, Virginia, Maren, Evan, all you guys out there. We had so many people. I just want to say I really appreciate all of your engagement.
Yes.
We'll be back next week. So
shout out to Paz.
Shout out to Paz, the one and
buddy.
only. We miss Paz. We love Paz. If you haven't got one of his t-shirts, reach out to him as well.
Please.
But appreciate all of you guys, and I think we're out.